Now, this is where I would like to hear from you. Do you agree with me and with John Paul Jones? Alright, welcome back to Music Guru, where rock and metal never die and every classic note still matters. Today we're going to talk about what John Paul Jones calls the worst Led Zeppelin album ever made, and it so happens that I agree with his choice. But even more interesting, I came to this conclusion far before I read his quote about the album that he chose, and I think that once you hear what his choice is, you'll see that he made the right choice. At least that's what I think. So let's be clear, there really isn't a bad Led Zeppelin album, so that almost makes it easier to find the weakest one because the other ones are of such high quality. Now, the information that I'm going to share with you comes from an article by Tim Kaufman over at Far Out magazine, and it quotes John Paul Jones choosing "The song remains the same" as the worst Led Zeppelin album. Now, "The Song Remains the Same" is a live album, and of course it isn't bad in the grand scheme of things. It's still Zeppelin, it's still very powerful, but compared to the towering brilliance of their core studio albums, this one just doesn't measure up. And Jones himself didn't really mince words. He said nobody really wanted the album to come out. It doesn't really reflect what Led Zeppelin was at their best, and I happen to agree with him, and here are the reasons why I independently came to the conclusion that "The Song Remains the Same" is the worst Led Zeppelin album. He didn't mention these elements specifically, but for that these are also elements of the album that cause it to be weaker than the others. So the first one is that the songs are way too long. They drag on way too long. Specifically, "Dazed and Confused," which stretches to over 26 minutes. That's double, more than double, the already long studio version. And what we're talking about here isn't a creative, concise, exploratory jam. It's basically just Jimmy Page noodling with the violin bow. And while I do think it is a cool piece of music, it's not something that you would really want to listen to over and over again. The second reason I think the album is rough is because Plant's vocals are not very good. So Robert Plant is one of the best vocalists in classic rock, but by the mid-70s, the strain on his voice was beginning to show, and on this live album, he really sounds nothing like you would expect. If this is the first time you heard Led Zeppelin live, you will be shocked at how weak and not like the studio versions his vocals really sound. So the third one is that there's many more meandering jams on the live set rather than good versions of loved songs. So while improvisation is a really special part of Led Zeppelin's DNA, "The Song Remains the Same" as an album just doesn't capture any of their magical jams, with the rare exception maybe of "No Quarter." And instead of elevating the songs on these particular selections, they just feel like they're dragging them out. So let's keep everything here in perspective. We're talking about one somewhat weak double live album in a discography that includes Led Zeppelin 4, Physical Graffiti, House of the Holy, Led Zeppelin 1, Led Zeppelin 2, Led Zeppelin 3. So there's a great canon of work there to talk about. Led Zeppelin changed the game. They redefined what a rock band could be. And so even when we're looking at one of their weak albums, it's not about tearing down the band. It's just about selecting the one album in their body of work that is not up to par compared to the brilliance of the others. Now, this is where I would like to hear from you. Do you agree with me and with John Paul Jones that "The Song Remains the Same" is the weakest Led Zeppelin album? Or is there another album you'd give that title to? And for those of you who really love this album, that's fine. Like I said, I think it's a good album, but tell us why down in the comments. What is it about this album that really works for you? And are there hidden gems or elements of the album you think that I should reconsider with fresh ears? As I said, I don't think it's a bad album. I just think it's the worst of all of the Led Zeppelin albums. This is what I think, but what really matters is what you think. So if you have an idea about this or any other topic connected to classic or contemporary music, please drop it in the section below, and remember to like and subscribe. Thanks a lot. Music Guru here, asking you to help us on our march to 10,000 subscribers.